Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar focusing on what to know and where to start when building or remodeling your dental practice. My name is Adam, Content Marketing Specialist with Henry Schein, and I'll be your moderator for today's presentation. If at any point during the presentation you have questions, please type them into the questions section of your control panel and we will be sure to cover them at the end of the webinar. Please make sure that your volume is up and any large computer applications are closed to ensure a smooth connection. This webinar is presented by Henry Schein Dental and no CE credits are being offered for attending this presentation. Our speaker today is Jimmie Hammond. Jimmie is a leading dental office project manager for Henry Schein with 15 years of experience as an architect and 20 years of experience as a dental equipment consultant. Jimmie has also been a part of nearly 500 dental office remodels and redesigns in his career. Thank you, Jimmie, for being with us today, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Adam. Good afternoon, everybody. Coming to you live from Massachusetts on this Wednesday. My name is Jimmie Hammond, and as Adam said, I'm an equipment specialist with Henry Schein Dental. Been with Schein for a few years now. Started my career as an architect, as Adam mentioned, and kind of ventured into construction and eventually designing and building dental offices. So we'll share with you today's agenda. A couple of things we want to catch, make sure we catch on. A couple of projects out there, whether you're building a new office or remodeling an existing dental practice. We're going to go through some of those scenarios and how that relates. The role of an equipment specialist, and we'll talk about what myself and my brothers and sisters at Henry Schein can do for you and your project and how we can be a guiding force. And lastly, picking the right location for your project, whether it's your moving to a new location, you're updating your current location, making the right equipment and technology choices, but really helping you take your project from maybe the outhouse to the penthouse. So that's what we can do. Again, about me, started practicing architecture right out of college in 1987. Decided to get my construction license a little after that, and joined Henry Schein back in 2002. So wearing all three hats, I've been involved in, good Lord, my father had me keep a list. I'm at about 502 projects between renovations and new projects. That ranges from small private practices to dental assisting schools to dental schools, but been doing it for a while. Henry Schein, an equipment specialist. Why would you want to have an equipment specialist on your project? Number one, we like to think of ourselves, and certainly here in the land of Tom Brady, we like to think of ourselves as the quarterback. Is that a lot of you folks really do a good job with molars and lingual buckle, dental things, but when it comes to design and construction and certainly putting together a dental office, we like to think of ourselves as the quarterback, and we want to kind of guide you through that process. The entire team, your team, our team, the team of consultants that are going to be involved, we want to be that source. We want to be that first phone call through the process. When you have a team, as opposed to having 15 people all banging heads and not knowing who's doing what, it's really important to put together the roles and responsibilities of who's in charge of technology and who's in charge of the dental team and who's in charge of the contractor. So it's really important to not only have those roles and responsibilities, but how are we all going to communicate, especially in today's world with email and texting and Snapbook and Instaface and all those technologies out there. How are we going to talk? How are we going to make this thing go from concept to open house? And lastly, this is a partnership. I tell my kids all the time that you can go online and go to chewy.com and order dog food. That's a transaction, but this is certainly a partnership, and you want to make sure that you align yourself with people that share your goals and visions, so that when you see Jimmy Hammond's name pop up on your cell phone, you're not like, oh, this guy's trying to sell me a timeshare. I mean, this guy's on my team and he's a part of this goal, this dream that I have. So it's really important that you find an equipment specialist that's going to be vital to what you're trying to accomplish. So I start every project with just asking 4 simple words to the doctor is what is your vision? And that vision could be, we could go for days. Sometimes I just get a puzzled look, like I really haven't thought about that. But I think when you really break it down, it may have started in college or in dental school. You started doodling, on the side of your notebook, what you want your practice to be. And I think it's very, very important that you create a foundation of what you want it to be. I joke with clients sometimes that your profession, unfortunately, not many people wake up in the morning saying, yay, I get to go to the dentist today. So if you can create an environment that's pleasant to both your patients and your team, I think they're going to forget about the dentistry, or at least try to. And you'll see the pictures here. That's an example of a 110-year-old farmhouse in New Hampshire that the doctor was told to knock it down and build a new building. And the vision that doctor and I shared was, we're not going to knock that down. We're going to turn that into a dental practice. And I think we did a pretty good job. So you have to think about your practice and how it reflects on not only your vision, but maybe the type of dentist or the type of environment, the type of service you want to provide. And there's a couple of ways to perceive that. Your team is going to perceive it as a workplace. Emotionally, are they invested in coming to work there every day, and are they happy about their job and happy about the service they're providing your patients? The facility, unfortunately, your patients aren't going to go home and tell their family or tell their friends, boy, Dr. Charlie, you should see the margin. His dentistry is just out of this world. But they're probably going to go home and talk about your practice. They're going to talk about what it was like to walk into the front room or the treatment room. All of that is something that they'll relate to their friends and family. And lastly, your hands. I mean, the actual physical experience of laying back in the chair and receiving treatment. So those are kind of the perceptions that are in the mind of both your team and your patients. The concepts, the way that we look to try to design your practice is, there's really 2 thoughts, is the treatment room, the cockpit where everything happens. You're kind of designing that from the patient out. Where's the patient going to be seated? How's the patient treated? And then all the support areas around it, whether it's cabinetry or equipment. And then certainly the office from the patient's perception. I mean, what is that patient's experience like when they pull their car up in front of your building and they get out and they touch that front doorknob and they walk in? What kind of perception or what kind of experience are they going to have from that front door in? Oftentimes you can lose a patient because that experience is less than what they thought it should be. These are treatment rooms. I mean, this is a treatment room that today's dentists, that today's dental schools, this is what we're mimicking. This is what we're designing. This is where you can receive anything from a hygiene appointment to full-blown reconstructions. But this reflects to your patients that you're clean, that you're modern, that you have technology. You can see the computer screens there. These are today's treatment rooms, and this is what we're trying to create for you, whether we remodel or build from scratch. Again, the patient's perception, if they walk into an office like this and they see a shark fin on the wall, the name of that practice happens to be Bluefish Dental, that sends a message that people are walking in and seeing something that's warm and inviting, or may reflect technology or some of the recent colors and textures and fabrics. But this is what your dental practice needs to show your patients. When we assemble the team, and I talked about having somebody being as your quarterback, it's my job and my peers' job to kind of keep all these people marching towards the same goal. And you're going to have kind of two major components to that team. You're going to have outside influences. Obviously, we're going to find a realtor or some kind of developer to present us a building. Most of you will already have an accountant or have a lawyer that's going to be part of some of that paperwork process. Obviously, we're going to bring on architects and contractors to do the documentation, to take the design. When you say, Jimmie, I really want a really modern looking office, or I want a cutting edge reception area, or I want a warm environment, what does that mean? We have to put that on paper so that the contractor can not only tell you how much it's going to cost, but so they can, they can build it for you. Obviously, we have funding people that need to get involved. So you're going to have banks and lenders. And then the consultants that you use to kind of help the backside of your business, whether it's marketing or websites, they're all part of kind of that external team. And then Henry Schein, there's 5 ways that we're going to touch your project. Certainly, you're going to have the equipment person. We call your rep, or the person that comes to see you every 2 or 3 weeks, we call them a field sales consultant. We have digital technology people that are bringing in software and hardware and some of the new digital dentistry technologies. Our boys and girls that are in the white vans that you hope you don't see that often, but you'll see them during the install. You'll see, and then we'll show you an example here later of our design studio in Wisconsin, and what comes out of what comes off their computers when they're designing and laying out your office. I had a doctor one time say to me that, well, yeah, I heard that a dental project, it's about $150,000. Well, that was partially true, and that was really, the first bullet point there was, the startup office was going to be about $150,000 in equipment. But I like to tell doctors, I think of project budgets and not equipment budgets. And yes, while I may be paid to sell you equipment, I think it's my overall role and overall job is to guide you through the cost of the project. So I like to keep, kind of these 7 or 8 basics in mind, that you want to have equipment, budget and supplies, software and technology. You've got to go down to Staples and whatnot and get a copier and paper clips. You've got to get reception area furniture. Certainly the largest cost is probably going to be construction, and whether it's ground up or a remodel. Some capital from the bank to kind of help get you started. And then when I say professional services, I mean kind of those costs for lawyers and architects, your accountant, etc. So the next steps, once we kind of get a hold of your realtor, we find a place for you to go, we'll use the example of a new project, is we start doing designs. Is, the realtor may say, okay, here's a 3,000 square foot space, and we'll start to kind of lay it out for you so you can see, certainly in a preliminary level, how many treatment rooms you can fit in and your private office, etc. But we develop the design. We get it to a point where we can put it in front of a contractor. So you can say, all right, Dr. Andrea, this is what we found. Looks like you're going to fit. And you may say, yeah, this is great. I'm really happy. I like the flow. I like how it lays out. Well, let's get an idea, just at least at the preliminary level, what that's going to cost. Once we agree that that's what you're going to do and what it's going to cost, we finish all the drawings. We get all the details for the finishes, the carpet, the lighting. We get all the construction details so we can go get you a building permit. Then we have the kickoff. Everybody's ready. We've got the building permit. City Hall said we can go. We get started. Contractor, our technicians, you, me, through the project. And depending, again, whether it's a new build or a remodel or a commercial tenant improvement project, your quarterback, your equipment specialist, is going to be that go-to person. They're going to be in front, administering the project and making sure that everybody's kind of following that schedule, and we stay online. We install the equipment. The equipment shows up with our technicians. We get it installed. We get you trained on how to use it. We get the final inspections, and lastly, we throw hopefully a really good luau open house, and you invite your friends and family and colleagues to come see what we've created for you. This is an example that comes out of our West Dallas design studio, where we identify a space. We actually work through a kind of design worksheet with you where we identify the type of spaces that you want to put in your practice, and we do a drawing to kind of show you how those work. And then if you can pretend that we take the lid off this or take the roof off, we'll show it to you in a couple of different views. You can kind of see the treatment rooms and the relationship between the rooms. So that comes out of our group in West Dallas. I can honestly tell you, we never build the first the first layout. There always seems to be changes or moves, or the real estate deal falls apart and we have to go look at another building. But I think it's very, very important that we work with you on identifying what you want and how it's going to lay out and how it's going to look in your potential new office. Kind of becomes a reality here. You can see an example of the reception area of a treatment room, of an instrument processing area, and the small room in the upper left-hand corner is a consultation room, or kind of a patient billing room. So what have we learned when we go through this is 4 key components to kind of making a project come together successfully. Is, I think, number 1 is you have to you have to spend time on financing. It sounds simple, but really taking the time to sit down with the banks to figure out what your overall budget is. I like to work with my clients and say, take that budget and divide it. Hopefully, you could divide it by a monthly payment to say, okay, it's going to be X. How much dentistry do I need to create to cover that X? And it's just going to be the right fit for you to do this move or to do this new project. But it always evolves. I'm sure a lot of you have done things at your home or maybe your vacation house where contractors have that favorite that favorite phrase of theirs, change orders. So things change, and unfortunately, we have to have money to address those changes. Real estate, in our part of the country right now, real estate is a little crazy, especially if you're in an area where some of these new technology companies, the Googles, the Amazons, the Ciscos of the world, and you're competing with them as a small business owner. It's really important that you try to find A, a good realtor, and B, you identify real estate terms, if you will, or a real estate deal that allows you to occupy the space that you really want. Build out allowance. Some of you may have been through that before, but that's where the landlord will actually contribute toward your construction. It's kind of a way of trying to effectively get you in the door by saying, we're going to give you a little bit of love because we really want you to be a tenant. And dentists are a great investment. I don't have the exact number, but it's well over 95% of dental offices succeed. So the landlords know that. A good commercial landlord knows that a dentist is a great tenant. You're not a, maybe a comes and goes t-shirt shop, or maybe, record store or something like that. But you're a good tenant. And so you definitely want to work with your landlord and with your realtor to get terms that make sense for you. Constructions, it's a little bit like auto repair. I mean, it just seems to go on and on and on, and you never really have a good answer for what something costs and what it really means. But having a contractor that you can trust, and you have that open line of communication, and you feel that he or she has your best interests in mind, because you have to remember, most of these people are working for the referral. They're going to build your office and you may never see them again, maybe as a patient, but your hope is you're in that facility for the next 20 plus years. Maybe you hire them again when you're ready to expand, or one of your kids gets out of dental school and you want to build a larger office or another office. But to keep in mind, and I did this when I was a contractor, I was going to charge a fair price and I was going to get paid for the service I provided. But at the end of the day, I wanted you to tell your friends. I wanted a letter that you took the time on your letterhead to say, Jimmie, I really appreciate what you did for me, and I think my friends would benefit from working with you. It comes to accounting and kind of some of the financial is make sure that this project not only fits in your dental budget, but it fits in your life budget. And you know, I can honestly tell you, I've only had one project in the last 19 years or so fail, and that was because it wasn't in their life budget. They bought a house that was kind of a little bit beyond their means and automobiles that were beyond their means, and the next thing you knew, it was difficult to pay the project loan. So you want to make sure, along with the project financing, you want to make sure that you do a good job of kind of putting your complete financial picture together, and so that it's not just the invoice that you're going to get from your bank or from Henry Schein, but that it's something that's going to fit into the overall financial project of your health. That's kind of what we had for you. I know Adam is hopefully taking questions from a lot of you, and I'm here for as long as you need. Is it important that my architect knows a lot about dental? There's two schools of thought to that. Is I happen to like architects that know a lot about retail, lighting and color. Remember that when you work with somebody like Henry Schein, we have the design studio. So when we get an example of a space that you're looking at, we're going to do a lot of that preliminary layout of how the treatment rooms relate to the front desk, that relate to the instrument processing area, et cetera. And then we're going to bring in the architect to do a lot of the final detailing, construction detailing, colors, things like that. So having an architect that has dental experience, it kind of helps because they understand the difference between a vacuum pump and an air compressor. But if they don't, I find that's okay, because again, they're going to be part of our team, and certainly having an equipment specialist and having a design studio that can support what they're providing, I don't see that as an issue. If I work with Henry Schein, would I need to purchase most of my equipment and technology from you? That would be nice. That's kind of how we keep the lights on around here, is selling equipment and selling toothpaste. Sometimes with a project, obviously if it's a current practice that you're moving across the street or across town, we recognize that you may be bringing some of that existing stuff with you. But certainly as salespeople and as people that are paid to provide you a service that we don't charge you for by the hour, the way we're reimbursed is through equipment and technology and supply sales. So are there hard and fast rules for that? No, not really, but it's I've done a pretty good job over the years of using a contract that my father shared with me years ago, and that's I just stick out my right hand and look the doctor in the eye and shake his or her hand and kind of just figure it out from there. But there's no real hard or fast rule about a dollar figure or anything that we need to hit. But certainly, if you agree to hang out with us, we'd like to earn some of your business along the way. Are there certain lenders that work better for financing the build? There are. I'm not paid by a bank. If there's a bank out there listening, I would accept an endorsement, but there are banks that certainly commercial lending, and there are banks that have small business lending departments that can certainly understand real estate. And I think the question is, do you own the real estate or are you renting or leasing? By all means, just like you may have shopped a little bit for your mortgage, or you may have shopped a little bit for your car loan, I would encourage you to look around for banks that understand small business lending, and then depending on the type of real estate that you're using, what type of loan is going to work best for you. Certainly with a startup project, if you're somebody right out of dental school, you can get loans that are what's the word, graduated. So maybe the payments are $1 for a couple of years, and then they jump to $3, and then they may jump to $5. But that's something that really is beneficial to your overall. We talked about kind of your financial picture, your life budget. That's nice to have banks that kind of can think outside the box a little bit and provide you flexible financing. I think that's the term I'll use. But I've already started the design process for my new office. Is it too late to get someone like you involved? In architecture school, we had to design a shelter for the homeless using a dumpster. So if you think of a dumpster that's probably 4 by 6 by 6, 12 of us had 12 completely different designs for something that small. So my goofy analogy is, no, your design, I could look at it and suggest changes. Another architect or designer or equipment specialist could look at it. But I think what's really beneficial is to have multiple eyes on that. Now, oftentimes, and I showed you folks an example that it was kind of a perfect rectangle, but we had a slide we were looking at the other day where the office was designed almost like a piece of pie, round on one end and went down to a point. I mean, it looked like a piece of pie. And I can tell you that with that, there's multiple solutions for that. But when you think of your design, and I'm sorry, I don't know who sent in that question, but you may or may not have a front door located, and you may have windows, and you may have columns or utilities that are in the way. So oftentimes the design can be dictated by the facility or the structure. My friends out there, maybe in the Midwest or that have land or that we don't have here in New England, you get these clean blank slates, and you can design from scratch. So certainly a designer, an architect, an equipment specialist, I mean, you could go for days and days and weeks and months designing potential layouts. But no, if you have a layout that you've started, by all means, I would get the opinion of an equipment specialist. Remember, we know a lot about ergonomics, and it's something we focus on with our clients, is keeping you seated in that stool so you can keep your hands and eyes focused on the patient and trying to reduce all your movements, whether you're twisting, reaching, bending over. A lot of times an architect may not have that. And if any of you ever get the opportunity to go to Wisconsin, you'll see in our design studio, they're only designing dental practices. I can tell you, the last architecture firm I was in, we had libraries, we had restaurants, we had law firms, we had beach houses. So that design that you may be looking at today may or may not be a good design, but having somebody to look at it that really only knows dental practices and knows the flow from front door through the public spaces, through the treatment spaces, through the private spaces, I think is it's important to get that opinion. And we collaborate with the architects. It's not like there's going to be a battle of one opinion versus the other. What unusual situations have you encountered during the many practices you've done? We'll have to have a separate webinar for that. No, unusual situations. I had a contractor die during the project, and it turned out that he wasn't paying any of his subcontractors. He knew that he was sick and didn't tell anybody. And so there was a lot of legal battles about getting contractors paid, and that was a complete nightmare that required a lot of smart bankers and lawyers. I used to cover Alaska, as you saw on the slide, and obviously weather has played a part in some projects up there. Some of my friends, maybe that are out there today, that are in the Southeast with hurricanes and tornadoes, you get a lot of weather. I actually had a shipment of equipment that was on a boat that capsized. So we had a delay in getting the equipment to the project because of it being in the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. But the one thing I would stress about unusual situations is, and this comes from me being a contractor back in the day, is schedule. And really early, we had a slide there we talked about project kickoff. Really early in the process is getting a schedule. Think about what you folks are going through. You may be moving, you may be doing a marketing campaign that says, Dr. Andrea is open on June 1st, and you're getting your Facebook page going, or you're getting your electronic marketing. It's very important that the contractor, that the entire project team understands your goals and where you're going. The silly joke with contractors is, oh yeah, I'll be done on Monday. Well, there are 52 Mondays. So making sure that you get an understanding from them of the schedule, and that you're in constant communication about the schedule, so we can identify, where we're maybe going off the rails a little bit, and try to keep the project online. But yeah, I could tell you stories that we could just go for days. But yeah, probably the most unusual one was that contractor kind of just leaving us all in a lurch. What are good colors for reception areas and treatment rooms? This is a great one, and thank you whoever asked this. I am not a colors person. My 19-year-old daughter still lays clothes out for me, so I don't have to pick colors. But I would tell you, people may be familiar with Pinterest and the Pinterest pages. And I tell a lot of my clients, do not put dental offices in there. Use things like hotels, airports. A lot of people, a lot of us as consumers are frequenting places like Panera and Starbucks. But colors today, a lot of earth tones, seem to be really popular. The blues, the greens, the yellows. But certainly look outside the box of healthcare or the box of dental and look for colors. The trend, it seems to be that red is not a popular color in dental. You can probably think why, but I would encourage you to open your eyes, and we all probably have some type of smartphone in our pocket. When you're out and around, start snapping pictures, light fixtures, upholstery, carpet or flooring. Somebody told me the other day they were at a really cool Acura dealership and they saw a light fixture. Somebody, believe it or not, as silly as it sounds, bathrooms. You do not want your practice's bathroom to look like a mobile station. And think about that when you go to some restaurants, or maybe Boston Children's Hospital has phenomenal bathrooms because moms and dads are going in there changing little ones. But I would really encourage you to open your eyes to things that you never thought of that would influence what your practice could look like. But if you leave it to me, your practice will be black and gold because it'll be Boston Bruins colors. So I'm probably not the right one to ask about colors. Question: Can what I have now be duplicated in the new space with all of my equipment, furniture, etc.? The answer is yes. And I have a practice now in downtown Boston that is going to go to 14 treatment rooms. And so we designed 7 of the rooms to fit in his existing dental equipment, and 7 treatment rooms that will have the new equipment. So we certainly designed the space to accommodate what he has. Furniture is an interesting one. It's a goofy analogy I have is when you build your first house or you have your first quote unquote adult condo space, you're probably not putting your furniture in that you had in college. So what you'll see is when you build this new practice or this new clinic and it has this new flooring and new lighting and new paint, what is that couch from the old place going to look like in the new place? It may stick out like a sore thumb. Can you get it reupholstered? Yes. Can you get things, refurbished? But more importantly, I think, yeah, if you're bringing over dental equipment or dental technologies, certainly any equipment specialist would work with you to make sure that flows. Think too about, maybe in a lot of your practices, the advent of computers. Is years ago there were no computers in the offices, so now you look in a treatment room, there's cords and wires everywhere because they were added after the practice was designed and built. Well, today's office, if we do our job, you're not going to see those wires and cords, because we're going to give everything a home. How much is a typical project cost? Well, I can't believe we waited to this question. That wasn't the first one. Cost is it's almost as vague as me saying to you, this is my analogy, and I hope you laugh, and I can't hear any of you. So it's like a patient walking into your office and saying, "Doctor, my tooth hurts, how much?" And then I just stop. And each of you look at me very, very quizzical, and I say, "You're right, you can't tell me. I haven't opened my mouth. You haven't taken a radiograph or a panoramic image. You don't know if I need a cleaning, if I need just a sealant, or remember, I'm not a dentist, so I'm going to really lose it here. Or do I need a full implant?" So saying how much does it cost to fix my sore tooth is hard. But what I can tell you, if you go back to that financial foundations page and you add in construction and equipment and technology and furniture, paying the architect, paying the lawyers, projects are going to range anywhere from, and I should preface this by saying, if it's a project that's going in a commercial building, so we'll say the exterior walls exist, the roof exists, the HVAC, the mechanical units exist. Depending on your part of the country and the cost of construction and whatnot, projects are going to range from $450,000 all in to, you could probably go on up. And a lot of that is going to depend on you folks, is especially when it gets down to the technologies. For instance, can you do traditional crown and bridge work using a lab, or are you going to use CAD/CAM? And for those of you who have looked into CAD/CAM, you know that the cost for a full system is $100,000 or more. That can really change the overall budget of your project. But here's the way I would look at it: is each of you can probably tell me what your car payment is, but you may not remember what you paid for your car. And what I would say in terms of a project budget is, once you sit down with the bank and go through everything, that project loan may be something like $4,500 a month, let's say. But if you ask the bank, well, for $5,000 a month, what does that give me? And they say, oh, well, that gives you $575,000 to play with. You may say, wow, for an additional $500 a month, my budget gets to X, and I can do either that extra treatment room, or I can do that CAD CAM product, or I can take a little better space in a better part of town. So I think when you think of budget, you want to certainly think of the overall number, and your equipment specialist and your banker are going to help you fit all of the components within that budget. But it's also nice to know the monthly payment. And again, once you have that payment, how much dentistry do you need to, how much dentistry do you need to do to provide that? So, does your company do builds in all states, or do you work in a certain region? I'm based here in Boston, and my territory is, I have projects in Maine, I have projects in Mass, New Hampshire. I just finished a project on Nantucket Island. So equipment specialists, we have a tendency to stay within 3 to 4 hours of our center. And I'm looking at Andrea for an answer here, but we have 60 centers across the country, roughly. So between the 50 states, we have somebody in your backyard that would support you. I apologize that I don't know an international question, but we are certainly in 30 plus countries, and I know an equipment specialist in Australia. God bless him and his family right now. But yeah, we can certainly support you anywhere in the United States and Canada, at least that I know here. But in terms of builds, remember, I won't get into the weeds about licensing, but as we at Schein are not licensed contractors and not licensed architects. I was in the past, but we are not a licensed architecture firm or a licensed general contractor. So while I still have the knowledge in my head, we aren't licensed to perform work in any state. So I think that's important to know that we are truly specialists in what we do. I have a minor remodel of only the sterilization room. I have looked into financials. Who is the next step? The next step for a minor remodel, and I have clients that are doing this as well, is to have an equipment specialist come look at your instrument area and how are you processing instruments from dirty to clean. How is your team prepping the instruments? Here in New England, I work a lot with Hugh Freedy for instrument processing and kind of how we organize the instruments and how they go from the instrument area, the Steri Center. How do they go to the treatment room? How are they used? How do they come back? How are they cleaned? How are they sterilized? But certainly, any equipment specialist within Henry Schein can support that. And yeah, financing and getting that paid for. Henry Schein Financial Services is very good with kind of one-off transactions or small projects, whether it's a $6,000 autoclave or it's a $50,000 or $60,000 treatment room project. By all means, we can help with that. Do you ever create new facilities for dentists in the same town to merge into an improved practice for 2 or more dentists? Phenomenal question, and the answer is yes. My own dentist, just west of town, was in a very old house. Windows were painted shut, dirt in the basement, a lot of spiders down there. And we built her her office was in the slideshow. We built her a new practice to not only grow her practice, but another doctor in town was retiring. And so my dentist bought that practice and merged it in with hers. So my doctor, Dr. Tracy, she went from a 1 doctor, 3 room practice to now she is a 4 doctor, 8 room practice. And they're all females. So with families and kids and pregnancies, I don't know that the four of them have ever been there at the same time, but it's we merged kind of two practices into one and expanded it into more than one dentist. So there's also a growing trend out there is to add specialties. So you may see a GP and maybe a periodontist or an endodontist kind of under the same roof, and that's certainly we do that. We do that all the time. Piggybacking off your last question, is there a way that you can bring together Henry Schein dentists in the same town to have them communicate to see if they would be a good fit together? By all means, that's a great question, actually. And I'll tell you a quick, goofy little story. Is years ago, I had a doctor that came to me, and he was about 72, 75 years old. And he said, Jimmie, if I was smart, I would build a building and I would call it the Above the Shoulders Clinic. And if you had any problem above your collarbone, you would come to my building, and it would be dental, it would be optical, it would be allergies, but anything you had wrong, he said, then we would all collaborate. That the oral surgeon and the allergist working on things, or the eye doctor, or and I thought it was phenomenal. And I also thought it was phenomenal as a parent that I could bring one kid to see the eye doctor, another kid to see the dentist, and another kid to get his allergy shot. And it never happened. Poor Max was 75 years old, and he didn't have the time to make it a reality. But to get dentists together to collaborate on a project is a phenomenal idea. And there's economies that now you're building. You're sharing mechanical rooms, or you may share a big team room. And maybe a big conference room that everybody can share and have lunch in, or have for continuing ed lectures or whatnot. But I think that's a great idea to talk to dentists. Sometimes it's just limitation, and when you get 3 or 4 people together, finding enough space, finding enough real estate to have a facility large enough for each of you. I heard you say you're on the East Coast. Is there somewhere I can go to see a sample setup of a treatment room? Another good question. I wish I could give out prizes for the questions. Henry Schein has centers, we call them centers, around the country. And here at our center in Boston, we have 8 treatment rooms displayed. So you would see dental casework, chairs, units, lights, some instrument processing cabinets, x-rays, the like. Next week in New England is the big Yankee Dental Conference. And for anybody on the line from New England, I'll probably see you next week. Stop by and say hello. We will have in our booth 5 treatment rooms represented. Another thing that you can do with your equipment specialist is, as you start to go through the process and you start to identify maybe some equipment selections, you may say, as an example, and I'm not a paid endorser when I say this, I really like ADEC equipment, Jimmie. And I'll say, well, let's get on an airplane and go to Oregon, and let's go to the ADEC facility. And there you're going to see their entire catalog come to life. And I got to tell you, if you've never had the opportunity to do it, to watch somebody building a dental chair or to build an autoclave, it's pretty fascinating, especially you folks that are used to tinkering with your hands in a very small space. To watch somebody build dental equipment, it's a little bit mesmerizing. But by all means, I would encourage you to get out and either go to an open house for a doctor you hear, in your town, or something that's built a new facility. Go to our showrooms, go to a major dental convention, or try to get yourself to a factory. Last question. Who said that, Adam? Last question? Okay. Someone had asked about a dental experienced architect. What about the contractor? Another good question. See, we could give out prizes. Here's my thing on contractors. I don't, and I'm not trying to be a smart, wise guy. I don't give a hoot about the flooring guy, the painter. I just hope when they put the paint on the walls, it doesn't get on the floor or get on my new equipment. When it comes to dental contractors, the most important is the electrician and the plumber. If you say to the plumber, or he or she says to you, yeah, I don't understand what a vacuum pump is or an air compressor, we probably don't have the right tradesmen on our project. So it's nice that the contractor has dental experience. Certainly in my years, it's nice that they know our technicians. And here in New England, we probably have 15 or so reputable contractors that know us. You also are sometimes limited by geography. I mean, my guys that I work with in Maine are not going to work on Cape Cod and vice versa. So it is nice to have somebody that's seen a dental office before, but I have worked with contractors with no experience, and I just say, please, I recommend you find an electrician or a plumber that have dental experience, and it'll make both of our lives go a little smoother. So the slide, did you want me to find?
No, that's good.
Okay.
But if you can just.
Oh, okay. Adam said last question, so that was it. I'm gonna let Adam wrap it up. I really encourage you you can certainly go to henryschein.com. Adam's left my email up on the slide. By all means, you can email me. This week would be better than next week because we'll be at the Yankee Dental Conference. I'm happy to reply to your emails. If you tell me where you're from, I can make sure to put you in touch with equipment people that I know throughout the country, or at least get your information to our centers. I thank you for listening to a wise guy from Boston on the phone today, and thanks for your business. We hope to see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Jimmie, for those great answers, and thank you, everyone, for asking all of those questions. We really appreciate everyone's time and participation today. If you have additional questions that we were unable to answer, or if you'd like to get in touch with a Henry Schein equipment sales specialist like Jimmie to learn more about remodeling your existing practice or building a new practice from the ground up, please visit us at henryscheindigital.com/office design. You will all be receiving a link to view the recording of today's presentation in the coming week via email. On behalf of Henry Schein, thank you, Jimmie, for sharing your knowledge of office design, and thanks so much once again to all of you for attending.